Hi, and welcome to Coffee with Claire. You know, as Americans, we are so lucky. We have access to great health care, to vitamins, to clean water, to really healthy foods, and yet 6 out of 10 Americans are either obese or overweight. Clearly, things are out of control. So join Dr. Ed Lewellen and I in our High Impact Living series, where we look at weight loss and healthy, fit living. Welcome back, Dr. Edward Lewellen. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Dr. Ed and I are guiding you through a series called High Impact Living, based on Dr. Ed's newest book titled Life Mastery. In our first segment, we gave you a basic overview of what would be covered in our series. Today, we are specifically discussing weight loss and a healthy, fit lifestyle. So, welcome back, Dr. Ed.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here, Claire.
I am so excited to have you here. This has been an amazing series, and we've gotten so much great feedback from our viewers regarding all of the really important information that we're sharing. So thank you so much for being here again.
I am so glad to be here, and like you said, the feedback's been fantastic. Love the interaction on social media.
Absolutely. Well, we mentioned in our premiere segment of High Impact Living about weight loss, and I definitely want to discuss that. But before we do that, I found it interesting when I was reading in your book, Life Mastery, that you talk about how most people have lost control of their lives. Can you share with us what you mean by that?
So there's a really interesting phenomena that takes place with most people, and what that is that we have a core identity, but most people get so lost in the roles that they play in life that they forget who they really are.
That is so true.
And so when they don't know who they really are, which is their place of stability, their place of strength, their place of power, then all of a sudden they're subject to the fluidness of their roles. And roles like being a parent, being an employee, being an athlete, all these things are constantly changing. They have no stability to them, and they're not meant to have stability. So what happens is, because people get so caught up in the roles they play, they lose control, because it's like trying to herd cats. You just can't.
Inside your own body.
Exactly. Well, and as you think about that, you have those feelings in your body, you have those thoughts going through your mind, and it's like I said, it's like chasing cats. It's just like they're going everywhere. Yeah, like ping pong balls. And that's because you're trying to satisfy a non-stable role or roles that you're playing in life.
Oh, that makes sense. Because a lot of times when we feel, especially as women, we get, we have to take care of our family, and we have to take care of work, and we feel responsible for all of these things. But when you talk about core identity, it's just like the core that you work in workout sessions. That's your true self, right? And Dr. Ed and I have actually been working together, and specifically around an exercise we did called the Island exercise, right, that is featured when you work with Dr. Ed. And I found that it was really hard at first to differentiate that core from this public persona I had, and all these other roles that I had taken on in my life. And through working with Dr. Ed, I was able to figure out what my core is. And I happen to have them here. You want to hear them?
Well, sure. And maybe let's do this
sure,
before you start in.
Okay.
Let me explain a little bit about how we got to those.
That's a great idea.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what I do is I ask people to take a look at who they are when there are no roles involved. And the reason why it's called the Island exercise is because literally on the exercise sheet, I have a picture of an island, has a palm tree, so that you're on this island all by yourself, and you have no roles. So you're not a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, sister, brother, employee, employer. You have no roles. and then I ask you to use 4 to 6 one-word descriptors to describe who you are. And the interesting phenomena that happens is a lot of people will go, oh, that's easy, I know who I am. And so they'll write down words, and I'll look at them and go, well, there's a role attached to that. There's and they're all going to have some roles attached. The main point is that you have to be able to exhibit these characteristics all by yourself and toward just yourself.
Right.
Now that's going to extend into roles, but that's a prerequisite. Then I ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate yourself. How much do you believe what you just shared? And again, that brings out the difference between self-ego and self-worth. So when we're all done, the self-ego, the self-worth, the core identity is all nice, tightly wrapped together, and so a person now has this grounded feeling of who they really are.
Yeah.
So I loved it when you told me how you were feeling once you got that grounded feeling.
Well, it took a while. It really did. I thought, just like a lot of the folks you work with, that I knew myself, and I do, but I had to dig a little bit more to find out who Claire is without any external influences, and that was kind of interesting to me. But I ended up with 6 different kind of descriptors that help me really be able to identify with Claire. And it's really interesting because now that I've identified them, they are mapping into every single thing that I do, every decision that I make, every interaction that I have with individuals and organizations. And it's made it really easy to make decisions because of it.
That feels really good.
It does. It's amazing. I don't feel like I've got, I don't feel so anxious about decisions.
Right. And again, that all feeds back into, prior to knowing this, it was all about the role you were playing.
Yeah. And how I was showing up for this person and this organization and what their expectations were. And it's like, no, I don't have to worry about all that. All I worry about is me and how everything else around me affects me if I decide to do something with them.
Right. Right. So let me illustrate with the audience just one of the characteristics you have listed, which is empathy. And what's interesting, 2 of the traits that people list sometimes that they have difficulty owning is love or loving, and empathy. And the reason being is that in so many cases, in so much of society, we're taught, don't brag, don't be prideful, you shouldn't have these traits. And yet that's all part of really loving ourselves. And it's okay to love ourselves. In fact, we really, in order to effectively love other people, we have to love ourselves, of course, in the proper way, not narcissistic, not in the negative ways, but in a very positive, upbuilding, encouraging way. Same way with empathy. It's good for a person to be empathetic to themselves. They need to understand how things are happening to them and how they're feeling. So sometimes it takes a little work to help people when they write those down to really become to own those things.
Yeah. And sometimes people see empathy as a little bit of a weakness. And to me, I think it's a strength.
Sure. Because
you can put yourself in other people's shoes and their situations and understand how they might be thinking the way they're thinking, or how they came up with that thought process around what you guys are discussing. And I like having that as a part of me.
Sure.
I think it's very beneficial as a communicator.
And even organizations can have these characteristics.
Sure.
There's a company that I know of that I worked with, of course, that fun was one of their core characteristics of their organization. So, real quick story, VP of sales accompanied a salesperson on a sales call. They're one of the last 2 vendors being considered to work with this organization.
High stakes.
Talking with the CEO of the company, and the CEO says, well, in order for you to get this job, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And because the VP of sales knew that fun was part of their core characteristics of the organization, he looks over at the salesperson and he says, "Are you having any fun?" A salesperson said no. And so they looked at the CEO of the company and said, "We've decided to withdraw our bid for your business."
Wow, because they were not having fun.
That's right. And they knew that, if it's going to be like that in the so-called dating process of getting them as a client, it's only going to get worse.
Right, because you got your very best suit on and your best foot forward in that scenario. Right. Yeah.
So you can see how knowing the core identity of a person or an organization can really be grounding.
And isn't that interesting? They were willing to give up a huge client because it didn't match to their core.
Right.
That's I really, that speaks to how much they really believed in what they said. It wasn't just fluff and stuff. It was internalized.
Sure.
So I have empathy as one of mine. I do have fun as one of mine.
Imagine that.
Well, I do like to have fun, and happy is another one. I enjoy being happy, and I'm kind of uncomfortable when I'm grumpy, actually. So I'm in a much better place when I'm happy. The other ones I had were insatiable curiosity. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning, and then I love applying what I learn, and I love teaching people. After I've applied it, I love teaching other people what I've learned too. Excitement is another one, and the last one I have is health. And I actually have a 3x5 card that I write these things on, and I keep them in my purse. I have one in my car. I have one just about anywhere that I show up, because it reminds me of, through my decision-making process, do I want to hang out with this person? Do I want to do business with this organization? Am I having fun? Thinking about working with this team. And like I said earlier, it just has made it so much easier for me to make decisions, because, this is who I am. And why is it my responsibility to compromise me to do business with someone else? That doesn't make any sense. But until it was really clearly stated, I guess, in black and white, and, and something hard copy like this, it just never registered.
Right.
And so it was such a valuable exercise. Yeah, it took a while to get down to this, but once we did, man, this is like marching orders forever.
So let me illustrate for the audience what it feels like. So if this is your core identity, and let's just take one role. Let's say it's as an employee. So if they overlay fairly well, that means you're going to have happiness, you're going to have satisfaction, it's going to feel good in your career. And the more that starts to slide off, and some people, I was talking with a guy last night, and he was like this.
Oh.
He was totally misaligned. He was sad that he lost his job, but he was happy he lost his job.
Okay.
Because he needed the money, but he didn't like what he was doing. So he was misaligned.
Sure.
So, and that's what's so great about going through this exercise, is once you understand it, you can find how closely your roles are aligning with who you are. And if they're not aligning well, if you're having to compromise who you are to be in a role, then you learn either to somehow match it up, be okay with it being misaligned, or stop doing it and find something else, another role that you want to replace it with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people live their lives like that. Or whatever you did.
Sure.
Because, we have to make money, we have to feed our families, we have to be able to, pay our rent and everything. But if you're not happy doing what you're doing, is there a way to figure out what your core is and find that perfect place for you? And make money and do all the things that you feel responsible for. You're hungry, you want to eat. I get that. I like to eat.
So speaking of that, how about weight loss?
Yeah. How about weight loss? Isn't it interesting that people lose control of their lives, and specifically around their weight? So, we've got this idea of a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, having our core. How does all that work together?
So when a lot of times when we're growing up, we're fed information that we take and we begin to own it. So
No pun intended, fed information, right?
that's right. So, maybe a child's, maybe they have what's called baby fat.
Okay.
And so the parents, they say, oh, well, they've got some baby fat. And then as they're growing up, it doesn't go away. It's beyond baby fat.
So then it's adolescent fat, and then it's 21-year-old fat, and then
Yeah.
and then you have a baby, so it's baby fat again.
That's it. But what a person begins to do is to absorb into their identity all the things. They're big boned, they're heavy, they're whatever euphemisms are out there for people who are overweight. And the unfortunate thing is that 30% of the people in the United States are considered obese. Another 30% are considered overweight, which means only 40% are at what should be their weight or less.
And that's not just adults; that's also children, right?
Right.
Wow.
Right. So they begin to absorb this into their identity, and so they own it, and so they think like I'm going to say an overweight person.
Okay.
They think like an overweight person. They eat like an overweight person. They act like an overweight person because they've absorbed this into their core identity. And they own that. So it's no longer a role, it's actually them.
Wow.
So they buy an exercise program. They buy diet pills. They do all these things
Have
that are
surgery
external.
yeah.
Absolutely. Gastric bypass. Have all these, they go to extremes like that to lose weight, and yet it still keeps coming back. And so much of the time it is because it's who they are. They own that. And so when I work with people on weight loss and a healthy fat lifestyle, I help to readjust their belief system so that they no longer believe that they are a fat person, an overweight person, an obese person. They no longer believe that. And it's so cool because they stop acting like it. They stop believing it.
Yay!
Yeah. They begin acting like a thin person. They still look in the mirror and they still know that they're this, but that's not them. And so they start to do things that will reduce that weight.
Oh, well, and it's all through their mind, their mindset.
It is. It
Wow.
is.
Isn't that interesting how powerful our mindsets are?
Yeah, and there's scientific proof that our thoughts, our beliefs all have vibrations, if you will, that interact with our body. And anyway, like I said, I could get into the whole scientific research into it, but it really does affect us and again, so much when we own it as our identity, is just that we think, we act, we believe, that we are that, and so we do it. We accept it, we own it, and we're okay with it.
Yeah.
The other factor that can come into play are emotions when it comes to being overweight or living an unhealthy lifestyle. An interesting phenomenon takes place when we become scared, when we are in fight or flight. And in today's society, it's amazing how we're put into this constant rush mode. Like we're always in survival mode. We're
Right.
always trying to achieve what's next. And what the body does, it senses that fear, anxiety, guilt, whatever it is, and it says, oh, I need to protect this organism. It's in danger of being hurt. And so it will build a wall of fat for three reasons. Number one is for protection. Number two is for going in survival mode for energy resources. And number three is in the event that there is an actual shortage of food so that it can have it to consume. So that's another reason why people can go on diets, they can take diet pills, they can
Yeah.
do all the exercise, They may get rid of it, but then it comes back.
That makes total sense. I mean, because you think of, how social media and we have everything we want right now, and we always feel like we have to serve people very quickly and get answers really quickly, and that does, it creates, I mean, just my body language is all anxious just thinking about it. It's like, oh my God.
Well, even our technology, I mean, you think about it, we carry our cell phones with us. We have a laptop. We have a
All
tablet.
the time, yeah.
And when we hear that ding, that there's an email. We get a
it's like,
notification from Facebook. We get a notification from LinkedIn. And the way the mind was made is that it's always looking for what's next. And then originally I was, because in prehistoric times, and we were afraid of tigers.
Right.
And
so you're always having to be on the lookout, and make sure that you and your tribe are safe.
That's right.
Yeah.
And back then, though, you knew when you were safe. Nowadays, because of all the technology, we never know when we're safe.
That is such an interesting point. Yeah.
So it's always, ding, 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 alerting us. And right now I'm reading a book on the one of the world's authorities on cyber. Sorry.
It's okay.
Anyway, the way that cyberspace affects us, because it's really cool that, well, I shouldn't say cool. It's really interesting that when we're behind a computer screen, there are things that go in cyber neuroscience. So this lady's over in Britain, and she's done huge studies for law enforcement and for organizations, but our mind acts differently when we're in that state of anonymity. We're uninhibited, so it reacts differently when we're in that state versus in a face-to-face situation like now.
That makes sense too, because you hear about people when they text people, or they'll put their profile online, but it's really not that a fair representation of who they are or how they might act if they were in a face-to-face conversation. What they might say might be a little bit less inhibited, face-to-face versus online versus face-to-face. So that's a really interesting study that she's doing.
It is.
Cyber neuroscience. Wow. Okay. I think she must be pretty smart. Well, I know that you work with a lot of people, and can you share with the audience maybe one or two situations that you've been able to do this mind shift with them and bring your clients back into control, so they're congruent rather than out of alignment?
Sure. And that's what I do. In a 30-day process I have is I start to work with a person. The first thing I do is help them get rid of the stress, anxiety, worries that they've been holding on to.
For a long time.
Exactly. Yeah. We've all got these things that we've just, like you said, we've just been, it's like we own them, and they're part of us, and now we're kind of like, well, this is just typical me to be this stressed. And an amazing thing happens is once I help them relieve themselves of that stress, they start to become who they really are.
Amazing.
And so that's when I start working with them on their core identity. And so people who, like we're talking about, a healthy, fit lifestyle, being overweight, people realize that's not really them.
Yeah.
That's not really who they are. And so as we go through that exercise, because in addition to core identity, I get into what their purpose in life is, and then their vision for their life for, depending on how old they are, the next, 20, 30, 50 years. And so people, I've had people that lost, 13 pounds in 2 weeks.
Wow.
We got a video testimonial from a gentleman I worked with who was way overweight. He used to run 5 miles a day. Hadn't been able to for, like 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
In a lot of pain. And he was so funny. He calls me up one day and he says, "Darn you." I said, "What?" He says, I was on my way to the buffet. I was going to get chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, rolls, gravy. He says I was all set for it. And the next thing I knew, I was standing in line for rabbit food.
Darn you, Dr. Ed. You made me eat healthy.
That's right. but what was so cool was he said he really didn't know how it happened. It was just automatic.
Wow.
And that's what's so exciting is what most people don't understand is our eating habits are automatic behaviors. When we feel stressed or we are bored or we're watching TV, we just automatically reach for usually junk food. Mm-hmm. And what would it be like to, instead of automatically reaching for junk food, you automatically reach for vegetables, fruits, proteins, the things that are good for you that even when you eat them at night, it doesn't hurt.
Right, right.
So that's what the mind really has the power to do, is be able to make that shift so that it's an automatic behavior.
Well, Dr. Ed, this is so fascinating. I'm so excited that you're here talking about high impact living. For those of you that are just tuning into the series, this is called the High Impact Living series. And if you'd like to get caught up with what we've done previously, you can watch the archived previously aired segments on WBTVN/channel/Coffee with Claire. In our next show, we'll be discussing financial security, which is another huge topic for many of us. In the meantime, if you would like to get a jump start on some of your techniques, Dr. Ed, you have a few books that they can purchase as well as your brand new one, right?
Sure. This is the new one, Life Mastery, the Fully Functional Life. And what this covers are the 6 areas, top searched areas underneath self-development, self-improvement. And so I get into each one of those. In fact, that's what our series is really based on, is this book. Mm-hmm. I have another one. The last book is called the 90-Second Mind Manager. And so in that, I teach you how to manage your mind, because what neuroscience has found out is that the time between feeling an emotion and it becoming a neural pathway, we have only up to 90 seconds.
Really short.
And so I teach people how to manage that thought process so that they can decide what to do with emotions rather than just letting them automatically own them.
Yeah.
And then my first book was Creating a Life of Forward Motion, and a lot of tips, tools, techniques on how, again, to manage yourself through different emotional situations so that you don't have to look for outside sources so much. It's something that you really can be used just by yourself.
And work through it internally.
Yep.
And you also take one-on-one clients, so how can people find more information about that?
Okay. My website is trans, TRANS as in Sam, -think, THINK.com. So you can contact me through there. My email address is ed@trans-think.com. And my phone number is 972-900-9207.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ed, for being here again. We appreciate it.
I have enjoyed it thoroughly.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Claire. Well, I balance my fun and responsibility. Being semi-retired, I make sure whatever I'm working at, I'm having fun doing it. Seeing new people come in and how much it means to them, that's how I help grow my business. Oh, I'm always encouraging others in their life to have fun also. Always remind them they got to have that balance. I think if someone is struggling right now, I would tell them, breathe deep and remember, tomorrow will come. You don't have to worry about it. Let it go. Well, I teach, what I do is I teach memoir writing, and I just finished writing my memoir myself. And I'm very happy. I am doing promotion on that memoir, and one of the reasons I'm happy to be with you, Claire. It would be just having a happy dance and having a good time and always smiling.
Are you in control of your life, or is your life controlling you? Specifically with weight loss and with a healthy, fit lifestyle, it's important to have congruency within the way you're thinking about things as well as your outdoor activities. So make sure that you have a good balance of how you're thinking about things as well as how you're doing things. Now remember, you can see archived events of Coffee with Claire on WBTVN/channel/Coffee with Claire, and we're on Roku, Apple, and Google Play. And as always, remember, follow the fun. I'll see you next time.